Greetings. I want to say a word about the sermon number 1 assignment. You can find the information there on in the detailed assignment called sermon number 1. So you will preach the sermon here with your colleagues and your peers in class when we get together in June. You will preach either on Tuesday, no, either on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. It depends on a few things, how we work that out. In any case, I'd like this needs to be an 8 to 10 minute sermon. We don't have time to listen to longer sermons. We have a compressed amount of time, and we will debrief every sermon in a specific way after you preach your sermon. It's gentle, it's fun, and you'll learn something. So don't be intimidated by that. This sermon can be on any text that you like. You can simply choose the text that you used for the close reading of the text if you'd like, or you can choose another text if you like. I'm not asking for a close reading of the text assignment on this one. I will ask that in the second sermon that you do in July, but not this one. Follow some of the things that Paul Wilson says about how to read it. He actually helps us to read the text in a certain way. It's a little bit like Mary Foskett. There's a lot of the same elements there, but he does it in a little bit of a different way. So when you read those chapters on trouble in the world, trouble in the text and trouble in the world, those chapters that are listed, he'll give you some hints on on some other ways to sort of read the text. But it certainly does include the same kinds of things. For instance, looking at the world in or of the text, as well as looking at the world behind or beneath the text, the historical context, and so on. One of the things about this 4-page sermon is that this sermon needs to be somewhat equal in its pages, right? So a 4-page sermon is trouble in the text, trouble in the world, and then grace in the text and grace in the world. And in an 8-minute sermon, that's 2 minutes each. Don't worry about an introduction or conclusion. I don't know. I'm really skeptical about introductions and conclusions these days. Just begin. You can begin page 1 in a really riveting kind of way, and we're going to be listening anyways. So dispense with the introduction and conclusion, and just launch into it. But make sure your pages are more or less equal. One of the reasons why I want them more or less equal is because we have a tendency to do a lot with trouble in the world. We're really good at that, aren't we? We're really good at naming all the troubles that we have, the troubles, the sins, the wounds that we have, and diagnosing that. So that part is, page 2 is usually easier for many people than other pages. Page 4 is very difficult, and the tendency is to make that really short. We're talking there about grace. What is God doing in the world? That is really tough. And you as a pastor, as a preacher, have to venture out and state that. So I'm getting way ahead of myself, but this sermon does need to be equal in its proportions in that respect. Just a few more words. Yeah, you can choose any text you like, and if you don't want to choose a text, if you want me to choose a text for you, just email me and I'll give you a text today, tomorrow, on the for sure. If you want me to give you a text, let me know by Monday for sure, because you have to be posting some things already. So this sermon is not, you don't have to hand this sermon in to me until the week of class. So when you preach the sermon in class, you need to have paper copies for your peers. We're not going to read it while you're preaching, but it's nice to have it there when we have a conversation about your sermon afterwards. And then have a paper copy for me too there, but also send me a copy of your sermon in a Word document, and then I can make comments on it later. That's all I'll say for now. You can take a look at the page in the detailed assignments folder called Sermon 1. That will give you, I think, all the details you need. So the 4 pages of the sermon, there's the book. What you're doing this week is you're looking at pages 1 and 2 of this method. And what we're doing in pages 1 and 2 is we're staying with trouble. We're staying with sin, with the problem, right? This will be interesting because you kind of have a week to wallow in the trouble in the text and the trouble in the world. This may be kind of a disturbing week, but that could be fine because you'll just be ready to look for the gospel then afterwards, the good news. So page 1 focuses on the trouble in the text. So as you look at this text and as you do your own studying of this text, what's the trouble here? There are often many troubles in texts. I'm thinking, for instance, about a story about the woman who, I'm going to actually read this, and then I'm going to talk about it. So, the story from Luke 13:10 to 10 to something else, 17. There you go. On one Sabbath day, he was teaching in one of the synagogues, and there before him was a woman who for 18 years had been possessed by a spirit that crippled her. She was bent double and quite unable to stand up. When Jesus saw her, he called over to her and said, "Woman, you are freed from your disability." And he laid his hands on her, and at once she straightened up, and she glorified God. But the president of the synagogue was indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, and he addressed all those present, saying, "There are 6 days when work is done. Come and be healed on one of those days and not on the Sabbath." But the Lord said to him, "Hypocrites, is there one of you who does not untie his ox or donkey from the manger on the Sabbath and take it out for watering? And this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has held for these 18 years, was it not right to untie this bond on the Sabbath day?" When he said this, all his adversaries were covered with confusion. That's interesting. Covered with confusion. And all the people were overjoyed at all the wonders he worked. So that's the text. Now, there are a number of different troubles in this text, and you need to choose one, right? Some of the other troubles are related, but your sermon will be a bit too confusing if you choose many of the troubles here. So one of the troubles is the woman who has been ill for 18 years and she's been bent over. So that's a trouble. Another trouble is connected with that, and that is that she is not fully in community because of this disability she has, right? So that's already 2 troubles, and you have to choose one, although those might be connected in an interesting way. Another trouble is that the leader of the synagogue is protesting this healing. So he wants healings done on other days, not on the Sabbath day. So that's another trouble. You could choose that as the trouble in the text rather than the woman who is troubled. And then there are the mention of hypocrites. So Jesus isn't just speaking to the synagogue leader, but to a whole crowd there who are the kind of people who will lead their donkey to water, but will not help someone else on the Sabbath, or who are protesting that Jesus has healed somebody on the Sabbath. Those are just a few of the different troubles in the text. And it may be that your sermon might include all of them, but you really need to choose one of those troubles. So the theme theme sentence for page 1 could be something like, "The woman needs healing," or something like that, right? The woman is bent over would be another one, right? Another one would be the synagogue leader protests the healing, right? So that's another trouble. So you really want to figure out which trouble you're going to be working with, right? And that will affect page 2, which is the place where you are looking at a kind of an analogy to the world today. What's the trouble? What's the analogous trouble today that echoes this trouble in the text? So if you do choose the woman as the woman's trouble as the trouble in the text, then the focus of page 2 is probably more individual. it's probably more the fact that we need healing. We are bent over in some way, and that could be metaphorical, it could be literal, but we are bent over in some way, and we need help getting up. So that could be one emphasis. If you chose the synagogue leader as the trouble in the text, then the issue is more structural. Why is it that some who have power in our society, in our world, want to dictate how people are going to be healed and helped, right? So that's another angle, another sermon. If you would pick the hypocrites as the trouble in the text, you'd want to ask, in page 2, you'd want to ask, why is it that we in the crowd, why is it that we, on the one hand, we will do certain things, but on the other hand, we do not seek justice, right? We will lead our horse to water, but we do not care about justice in the world, right? We'll make certain exceptions to some rules, but not to others, right? So that's how page 1 and 2 kind of work together in that respect. And notice already that by playing around with the trouble in the text and the trouble in the world, we're already focusing on some needs and some images, right? So if the woman if the woman is the theme, the healing of the woman is the major thing that you're working with, then you already have an image. It's the image of somebody bent over, rising up like this, right? That's a great image, and that could work really well in, especially on page 3. But you have this bent over woman, and what is the so that could be a great image. There'd be all kinds of other images you could find for that particular one. You could probably find a good image for kind of the mob, the hypocrites who will do one thing, will make an exception for one thing but not for another. So the image may come, as I said in the other video, from either the text or from the world. You have to sort of play with that a little bit. And then also, we're also looking at need now as well, right? So the woman needs healing. So if you're sticking with the woman here, we need healing. What kind of healing do we need? What kind of healing do we crave? We don't want to be bent over. We want to be looking at the world, something like that. Why is it that we are figuratively looking down and not up? Why are we navel gazing? I mean, you can get into all that kind of an analysis with page 2. Or it could be that the need, we have this need, take the hypocrites for instance, we have this need to serve ourselves but not others. What's that about, right? And what are the needs that we have that are causing us to sin, that are causing us wounds? And what is the real need beneath that? Probably way beneath that, we need confidence that we can trust in God. That could be something way underneath that. So that's enough for that text. I'm just playing around here with page 1 and page 2, the trouble in the text and the trouble in the world. And so I invite you to start playing around with your text, with page 1 and page 2. Read Paul Wilson's chapters. Some of his, I'll just say that some of his illustrations, some of the times when he goes to smaller print and quotes another sermon or one of his own sermons on what this looks like, some of those are a little curious to me. Not all of them seem to work that well, but you can take a look at those. And if it's super, super long, it probably doesn't work that well. If it's a shorter example, those are usually better in his book. So take a look at that, and for your postings, just give us a place where you're stuck, where you have a question about how the 4 pages works with your particular sermon. And thank you very much, and happy 4-paging. Bye-bye.